So what is next for Israel Adesanya, the former two-time UFC middleweight champion, who is now currently on a 3-fight losing streak? So, as we all know, Israel Adesanya suffered his third loss in a row on Saturday night at UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia, where he was stopped in the second round by Nassourdine Imavov. So, let's now look at Adesanya's last 3 matchups, starting it off with the fight that kind of kicked off Israel Adesanya's losing streak, and that was the fight against Sean Strickland. Now, nobody's seen this outcome happening. Israel Adesanya was a massive favourite going into this matchup against Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland exposed a massive hole in Israel Adesanya's game, and that is his boxing. Now, Sean Strickland, and this is, the pun is not intended here, quite literally dog walked Israel Adesanya around that cage for 5 rounds, even dropping Israel Adesanya in the very first round and nearly putting Israel Adesanya out, because he did land a lot of follow-up shots after he dropped Adesanya with that big right hand. But yeah, that is the one that kicked the losing streak off. Then Adesanya took about a year off around that. Then he came back to an immediate title shot against Dricus du Plessis. Now, this fight right here, in my opinion, could have been one of the biggest matchups in UFC history if the UFC had promoted it and built it right. But shock, the UFC didn't. They had this fight headline out in Australia for some reason, when this would have been the perfect fight to do UFC Africa. But let's just move on from that. What happened in this matchup? Israel Adesanya looked good. He did look good. Going into the 4th round, I had Adesanya beating Dricus du Plessis, but DDP done what DDP does, and that is just, even though the guy looks like he's fighting underwater all the time, the guy is just still in it, and the guy's got that dog in him. Oh! And he took Israel Adesanya down after hurting him on the feet and submitted him due to a rear naked choke. Then Adesanya made the turnaround to fight Nassourdine Imavov at UFC Saudi Arabia, where again, Israel Adesanya looked really good in the first round. I thought he won that matchup, even though Imavov did have the bigger moment of catching Adesanya with that rear uppercut. But Israel Adesanya done the better work throughout the round and showing that he does have really good takedown defense. However, in the second round, Israel Adesanya was caught with a big right hand from Nassourdine Imavov, and a lot of people complain about the stoppage. I thought it was perfect in my opinion, and Mark Goddard does have some questionable stoppages, which now takes Israel Adesanya's record to 24 wins, 5 losses now in the UFC. The crazy thing is, this guy was undefeated for a large part of his career. His first loss obviously came to the hands of Jan Blachowicz when he moved up to try and become double champ. But what is next for Israel Adesanya? In my opinion, I think the guy should retire right now, because I feel like Israel Adesanya has done a lot of good things in the UFC. A 2-time UFC middleweight champion with multiple title defenses, with some really big names on his resume, like Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero, even though that fight was a stinker. The KO over Alex Pereira, another big win. The guy does have some big wins, but I fear that if he stays, like, he did look competitive in there against Imavov, he got caught, but I feel like if Adesanya stays, he's going to go down the same route of an Anderson Silva, who in my opinion was top 5 for a very, very long time. Anderson Silva was one of the greats, went on a crazy win streak, as we all know what he done in the UFC's middleweight division, but stayed around too long and started losing the levels of competition that you would never have expected Anderson Silva to lose to. But age caught up with him, age catches up with everybody, and Anderson Silva stayed around too long and kind of tarnished his UFC legacy, in my opinion anyway, and I no longer have him top 5. And I'm not saying I have Adesanya top 5 at all, but the guy is like a fringe top 10 all-time fighter, and I feel like if he walks away now, it's still intact, but I fear that if he stays and continues to fight, there are matchups that he can win. We are going to go over some possible matchups for Adesanya if he does choose to stay around. But I feel like you're 35 years of age, you're a multi-millionaire, just walk away. Your legacy is cemented forever in this game, in combat, through kickboxing and your UFC career. Just step away now while you're ahead. Because I feel like if Adesanya does continue to stay, he is eventually just going to ruin his legacy. But these are 3 matchups that if Adesanya does decide to stay around for, that I think would make sense for him. Let's start off with this one right here, Sean Strickland. Now, this right here is it's not just Sean Strickland. This could be the rematch with either Strickland or DDP, but I think DDP is going to beat Strickland. That's why I have Sean Strickland here. Now, does Israel Adesanya deserve another big name matchup? You could argue no, but Israel Adesanya is a cash cow for the UFC. The UFC are going to... he is going to be prioritized over a lot of other fighters because of the amount of money and eyes that this guy can generate. And this right here, Sean Strickland Adesanya 2, would be a really big matchup. Now, obviously Adesanya would be on a 3-fight losing streak, which is a problem, but Adesanya's name currently still kind of masks that losing streak that he's on. Like, a lot of the hardcore, not even hardcore, the people who do tune into MMA will know, wait, Adesanya's on a losing streak, but the casual viewing people will hear Israel Adesanya and then want to tune in, and obviously being paired up with a big name like Sean Strickland. Obviously, it's going to be a tough one for Adesanya to come back from because we didn't really see any route to victory against Sean Strickland. Now, this might be a controversial take. I still think Adesanya is a better striker than what Sean Strickland is. I just think styles make fights, and Sean Strickland's striking style is really hard for Adesanya to deal with. But if Adesanya is going to look to stay around, this right here is definitely a possible opponent. Now, you could obviously do the DDP rematch as well if DDP is to lose to Sean Strickland, because DDP will not get an immediate title rematch. It will, of course, go to Khamzat Chimaev next, even though there is an argument to be had that Imavov does deserve it more. We know that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be prioritized. But this is matchup number 1, the rematch against Sean Strickland, another big fight for Israel Adesanya. This could be like a 5-rounder co-main event. This could headline its own fight night. This right here is a big matchup. Moving on to the next one, we have got Shara Bullet. Now, obviously, both guys fought on UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. Both guys lost. Now, Shara Bullet, after losing the MVP, I believe won't be ranked in the middleweight division anymore. And yes, Adesanya is on a 3-fight losing streak, but the guy will still be top 5 of his division, I believe. So, Adesanya is still in the top 5 conversation. Shara Bullet, he is a big name, even though he won't be ranked, well, shouldn't be ranked after losing the MVP. He's still a big name with a big following, and a lot of people will tune in for this. Like, if this is a 3-round co-main event for another Abu Dhabi card or a card out in the Middle East, it will help whatever card it's on, because Adesanya is a big name, and so is Shara Bullet Magomedov. And this is a matchup that Israel Adesanya can win. He is a better striker than Shara Bullet. He's going to be much bigger than him in the middleweight division. I think he beats Shara Bullet. So if Adesanya wants to stay around and wants to get a big win, that is kind of not an easy matchup, but like a matchup that's very, very winnable for him, and is still a big name in a high-profile fight, even though Shara Bullet, like I said, I keep saying, shouldn't be ranked. This right here is a fun one. Timelines both match as well, because both guys fought at UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. And finally, we've got this one right here. We have got the trilogy with Alex Pereira. Now, a lot of things need to fall in place for this to happen. Pereira needs to lose to Magomed Ankalaev. I think he'd get an immediate title rematch against Ankalaev. I think he'd have to lose that again. So there is a lot of things that need to happen for this matchup to happen. That's why I have it in last place. But yeah, this right here, the trilogy, obviously both guys are 1-1 in the UFC. Now, those both fights took place in the middleweight division. Pereira obviously is up at light heavyweight, has even talked about moving to heavyweight. So Adesanya, I feel, would have to move up for this matchup. But for those who know, on ESPN MMA posted it, I think, and it was Adesanya like basically crying, cutting weight for this matchup against Imavov. So Israel Adesanya obviously does struggle with the middleweight weight limit. He has fought at light heavyweight before, although didn't take it too serious and didn't put on the weight that I think would have been needed for Adesanya to compete in that division. This fight right here is a fun one. It sells. It's a big rivalry in the sport of MMA. Now, obviously, both guys are very chummy, pally now, so maybe the fight won't happen, but that's why I have it at last place. It's very unrealistic, although it is a trilogy, and a big matchup that I personally would like to see, because Adesanya has given Pereira his toughest fights in the UFC to date. He knocked out Alex Pereira, which is a win that is going to be crazy in the future for Israel Adesanya, to be the only guy to currently beat Alex Pereira in the UFC, and the way he knocked him out. Now, like I said, a lot of things need to happen. There's a lot of moving parts. I don't think Pereira's going to lose to Magomed Ankalaev. I think he's going to win. I don't think we're going to see this matchup. So I think it's between these two if he stays around. Obviously, you've got other guys in the middleweight division, like you could do a Paulo Costa rematch, really. I don't think that sells. Then you've got the likes of Caio Borralho. I don't think Adesanya would take that matchup against him. I think stylistically, that is not a favourable matchup for him. A big puncher that can grapple really well. So I think these are the two most likely matchups for him. Obviously, you can add DDP in there. It's either whoever loses between Strickland and DDP is who I think Adesanya could face next. I'm going for Strickland because I think DDP is going to win. But overall, I think Adesanya should just walk away. That's my opinion. But those are three possible matchups that I think would make sense for Israel Adesanya moving forward. But you can let me know your opinions in the comments below. What do you think should be next for Israel Adesanya? Is it time to retire? What is it? I think it's time to retire before he ruins his legacy completely. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you again in the next one.